Good afternoon and welcome to this month's Orion complimentary webinar. Today we're going to talk about decorative hardware and the luxury client. I'm Deb Barrett and welcome everyone. But first, before we start talking about hardware, first things first. I think that often we forget about the big picture and we think only about selling the products and the componentry, and luxury in our eyes sometimes equates with selling something that costs more, or the term that gets bandied around a lot in our niche in the design industry is high end, or I want to move my business to the next level. Well, what is that? And how do you do that? Because really selling luxury these days, bottom line, after we finish this webinar, I think some of you will see that it isn't about selling the products and services that cost more or are better quality or have a brand name. There's much more involved in selling luxury, and part of that of selling luxury is then selling decorative hardware. So let's first begin with talking about what is luxury. Let's define it, because it is definitely changing. In fact, there's quite a bit of a sea change happening in the design industry when it comes to luxury. So, if we were to look at Webster's, the Latin word for luxury is luxus, and it's really about abundance, splendor. It's defined as the refinement of life, and it's certainly, those adjectives are central to the definition of luxury. It's all about quality of life, the joie de vivre, as the French call it, and the appreciation of it. So luxury really by definition is not really necessarily about the trappings of money or status or product that conveys status. It's really more about the appreciation of a lifestyle, if you will. We used to define luxury as, higher priced items, the high end buzzword I just mentioned, status. Remember back before the recession when you had to have the Birkin bag, or maybe it was a pair of certain kind of sunglasses, or whatever that product might be. Or sometimes it was defined by brand, Louis Vuitton, Chanel, Coach, etc. It really all sort of said the best of the best, the most expensive product, the most expensive service. So here, price was equated with the best in quality. And typically in old luxury, it was a non-essential, indulgent type of product or service, and it was only available in a lot of cases to the more affluent population. What's interesting is there have been several studies done very recently about luxury and how it equates to design, and how we actually relate to design emotionally. It's interesting, there's evidence right now that show that, for example, our faith and authenticity, and you probably have heard that word bandied around a lot about being an authentic brand, or making sure that your services are authentic because it has value. So there's evidence now that that whole idea of the human's faith in the authentic, especially when it's supported by very effective marketing campaigns, is actually a deep-seated human instinct, and it actually emerges at a very early age. So really, bottom line is that good function and good designs evoke good feelings. That's why we love luxury, and scientific evidence to go with it. And one day you're in and one day you're out. Old luxury that we just defined is, all about the attributes, the benefits, the features of the product. It's also about price equating to materials, to the brand, or to the luxury itself. It's about status. It was when we were all about consumerism and consumption, and shopping was like a competitive sport, particularly in the 90s. The new luxury is much more consumer-centric. The customer these days doesn't like to be bombarded with a lot of messages that don't have anything to do with them. They want very direct, focused marketing messages, and they want to focus on an experience and a story. And that's going to become key as we move forward and we talk a bit more about who your customer is in selling decorative hardware and how you define that customer and luxury. So it's the new luxury is embodied not only in goods and services that they buy, but in the ownership of it, in the possession of it. Is sometimes more important than the product itself. So in the DNA, it's really about, focusing on the consumer and having them feel like they're quote unquote living the dream. There's adding value to your products and services so that you create a relationship with that. And sometimes it's in 4 or 5 different ways. So for example, if you're talking apparel, I feel taller, I feel sexier, I can command respect, I'm living that dream, I feel complete. And some customers prefer to do that in, travel. Some people prefer to do that in apparel. Our customers tend to prefer to do those things in their homes, in their interiors and environments. Technology plays a big part in the new definition of luxury right now. Interesting quote here from Milton Pedresca, who is the CEO of the Luxury Institute, that with Apple you get a better design, a better function, and a better luxury experience than you do with most other luxury brands. And it is really true. CEOs of major companies are always looking at what Apple and Samsung are doing, Sony being another one, because it's really key to focusing in on defining that luxury customer. Part of it is being an escapist. We're sort of living in a world where it's really difficult to control a lot of things, so you buy technology because you think that it's going to allow you to be more organized, more efficient, have more time. It's not about the product itself, it's what the end result of that product is, and that end result is the experience that I'm referring to. The other part of technology is that it's allowing for what we call design democracy. Shoppers do a lot more research before they even consider picking up the phone and calling you to come in for your custom window treatments, which include drapery hardware. Before you even enter the door, they've done a lot of homework. And what that means to us is if they've done their homework, the way we used to present in the home, sell in the home, and market to those customers, even down to the way we sample, has to be changed. You cannot do business the way we used to do business. Walk in, bring in a bunch of samples, have her sit down on the couch, walk her through, draw some stuff on a lined sheet of paper, thumbnail sketches. That's not what she's expecting. And if you do, that might be the reason why you're not closing as many sales these days. It's not necessarily about the price as much as it is the way that you're presenting yourself, particularly to that luxury client. Another part of the DNA is what we call functional luxury. It's products to provide a new experience. It's typically a more expensive product, yes, and you probably clearly don't need it, but you rationalize it because it saves you time and money, it's going to give you better health and wellness, it's going to help your quality of life. It's like putting the outdoor pizza oven in your outdoor kitchen. You really don't need that outdoor kitchen, but you're talking about how it's going to be more convenient, you can entertain there. It's just going to be, isn't it going to be wonderful that we're going to be able to use our backyard, etc., etc. It's the way to justify the purchase, is that the luxurious item that you're wanting to buy has some sort of function to it. And for us in drapery hardware, it's motorization. It fits that description to a T. You really don't need it. It's usually higher priced, right? But it'll save you time or money, right? It's, who doesn't love a remote control in their hand? It also is going to, better your health and quality of life, and, it's saving you time. You're more organized, et cetera, et cetera. Especially if you're hooking it into home automation because of the convenience factor. So old luxury, new luxury, let's redefine what luxury is. It's really defined luxury as desire. And the idea here is that you as designers, retailers, design pros are going to try to create that desire within your consumer. And the main elements to do that are to create a show and a know. The luxury consumer's motivation is all about elevating or maintaining themselves at a certain desirable position, and that's where you come in. That's where you can impart the knowledge, which is part of your luxury service. Content is king right now. Education, e-learning, knowledge, any kind of, whether it's visual or textual, is very important. So for you as a seller of whether it's drapery hardware, custom window treatments, whatever it might be, you need to know the process. How's it being made? Is it made by artisans, that master seamstress? For us at Orion, it's made in the U.S. Is one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is we actually are, forging those wrought iron products. It's not something that's being made in China and shipped over. Do you know all there is to know about the end product? Do you know its story, for example? Do you know the story behind these faceted crystals, or the fact that you can, they were whatever percentage lead crystal, for example, or that they were hand cut and that it's, Austrian and all those kinds of things. So do you knowing the story behind the raw materials you're using? Is it, powder coated if it's outdoor hardware? What type of steel are we using? Are we recycling? All those kinds of things. This is how you really sort of justify your cachet within the market and for selling those luxury items and selling those luxury items to a luxury customer. Because in a recent survey, this was done, by the way, by Elle Decor, they asked designers and readers that were selling luxury home furnishing products, what are the top 3 reasons that their customer buys luxury home furnishings from them. The first one was design. Whether it's functional design, technical design, emotional design, whatever it is, it's all about the design. The second is high-end materials, choosing the best of raw materials you can. And maybe it's locally sourced if you have a green story to it. Maybe it's something that's rare and unique and you can't get in a material. Or maybe it's some new technology that's creating an innovative material that the client wants. And then third, it's all about craftsmanship and how you put that together. Design plus high-end materials plus craftsmanship equal an authentic brand. It's not about a brand name anymore. It also, when we redefine luxury, it's also about redefining what value means. The new luxury consumer relates value to quality and, again, to design. They want quality, but they're prepared to go up in price. Sometimes we don't ever ask them to do that. And that's another that comes back to the way we're presenting in our sales process. So it's about us taking a more considered approach and asking, because remember, if you don't ask for the sale, you might not ever get it. It's about investments. It's using just even terminology like that. Your investment in this project, it's not about how much it's going to cost. It's about the investment. And it's also about design kind of reverting to the whole original premise of what design is all about. It's about creating useful things that last, because craftsmanship and classicism are always valued characteristics within products and services. So I also mentioned that one of the key redefinitions of luxury is experience. So I want to talk a little bit about experience. Because what we know about our customer is that they're really fueled by the need to be validated and to be in control. And what's happening within the consumer market is the unexpected is now sort of becoming the ordinary. I call it often in some of my presentations shock and awe. It's like, how can you create surprise and delight or shock and awe with a customer? Because if you're continuing to do it on an everyday basis, then it becomes ordinary. They know about it. It's all about inside access right now to create that experience that's a fresher, cooler, hipper, ultimately a more valuable experience to them. If they're doing their homework and there's such a thing as design democracy, we have to give them that insider access. In some cases, the product and service isn't as important as the process of research and discovery, or telling the story of the project to the customer, and the customer's friends, the customer telling that to their friends. So what I mean by that is, if you're relating a story about crystal finials and that they were handcrafted in Austria and shipped over, and your installer puts on white gloves like an electrician would if he's hanging a crystal chandelier to install the crystal finials and to buff them, A, it's an experience for the client, and B, part of that experience is then being able to tell her friend, oh my God, they walked in the house and we opened up the crystal finials and they're in these black velvet boxes, and then he put the gloves on, and that's sometimes more important to them than the product itself. An experience, to be clear, differs from service or customer service in that it's always memorable, and remember that it's dynamic and it's personal, and that the customer has some sort of active participation in it, and it's engaging their senses. Also remember, when you're trying to create those quote-unquote craveable experiences, and here's a great example from another industry, basically red carpet concierge service to fill your tank. People that hate to pump gas, they'll pay more if they have valet service at the gas pump. So how can you translate something like that into selling drapery hardware? What's your concierge service or your valet service? Keeping in mind always that your competition is anyone who's fighting for those customer experience dollars. It's like, do I put custom drapery hardware and window treatments in my dining room? Do I go on a cruise? That's your competition these days, something that wasn't like that 5 to 10 years ago. And remember also that standards are being set in certain industries outside of our own, certainly with technology and certainly through the web. So we need to look at the way people are offering brands and experiences across other industries. Sometimes we get so isolated and insular in our own industry, we don't look at what's happening in the big picture. Okay, so we talked about luxury and we kind of defined and redefined luxury. The next thing is, who's going to buy this luxury decorative hardware? Who is this luxury consumer? Well, according to the last census, it's probably the affluents, and affluents are defined as households with incomes of $100,000 or more. And it's actually the fastest growing segment in the U.S. economy if you take it based on income. The ultra affluent households, those are households that have incomes over $250,000 and above, grew 10.5% in the last census. Affluences are people like managers and executive professionals. I think we would all agree that's probably our ideal client or our client that we're targeting. They're probably better informed, whether it's about politics, the economy, the cultures globally. They're early adapters. And one of the things we do know about them is financial security is a primary concern. Affluents know who they are, so they don't need to buy status symbols to give them confidence or prestige. So again, that's why luxury is changing away from that sort of brand and status symbol. Some more figures to, I don't want to say bore you, but just to kind of give you an idea. In the U.S., affluent households with incomes over $100,000 account for a little over 20% of the economy. And if you break that down, you can see that 85% of them are white, 9% are Hispanic, Asian Americans are 7%, African Americans are 6%. So this kind of tells you culturally how it's also, and ethnically, how it's the demographics are broken down. The other group that you want to be aware of is what we call the near affluent segment. So that's people that have incomes between $75,000 and $100,000. And that is the group that, though they're younger, they're driven by a little bit different motives. So you need fresher looks and limited edition collections, for example. But the other thing about them is they strive to be affluent. So when they look at luxury and maybe buying custom window treatments and decorative hardware as a way to connect with the affluent household. Where are the affluents? Well, this again from the U.S. Census. What's interesting is basically bottom line is those 20% of that affluent households are based primarily in the South and the West. And what I'm saying here is what we found out between the last census and the most recent census is that in the 2000 census, the Northeast and the Midwest were more at 30% and 29%. And what I'm saying here is people are moving out of the Northeast, out of the Midwest, into the West, and into the South. So there's a whole shift into the population to the South and the West. So if you're on this webinar today and you're in the South and the West, that's good news for you, because clearly the bulk of new consumer spending when it comes to home buying, home decorating, is going to happen in the South and the West. And if the pattern continues with people moving out of the Midwest and the Northeast, that's going to leave those two regions with aging population, probably also with a been there, done that attitude. And based on the demographics. Where we do business as a custom window treatment niche and drapery hardware niche within the design industry is most of us are doing business in the Northwest and Northeast and the Midwest, not as many in the South or the West. So again, opportunity, meaning that you don't have as many competitors in the South and the West as you do in the Northeast. Where do the millionaires reside? This is where America's rich live. This is, again, from USA Today. And the top 5 cities, obviously, would be New York, LA, Chicago, San Fran, and Philadelphia. More than 400,000 millionaires are in Texas, California, New York, Florida. I think I probably would have thought that, followed by Illinois, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania. Part of that is aging population, so they've already reached their high earning and investment years, so that their net worth is more than in some of the other small Western, for example, or Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, because it's a younger population. One thing to know about this luxury consumer, this affluent, is that 90% of them have made an online purchase in custom window treatments and home furnishings over the last 12 months. So what I'm saying here is if you're not on social media from a business perspective and you don't have a website, they don't know anything about you, because they're surfing the web before they're picking up the phone and calling you. The other thing that's interesting and that's web related about the luxury consumer is that so often, traditionally, historically, when asked how you market yourself or you talk about how do you get your sales leads, the response is always from referrals from my clients or my family or my friends, right? Well, what's interesting here is that it's kind of switched and taken a back seat. So based on the consumers telling us that they're making the decision who to buy from, Almost 3/4 of the time based on their online research, and just over 1/4 of the time are they deciding who they're going to buy from when it comes to custom window treatments and decorative hardware by referrals. So it's switched. Another reason why your phone leads maybe have dried up and people are finding you in other ways. Another thing to be aware of when you're selling decorative hardware and custom window treatments is that 75% of luxury consumers say that if they weren't effectively serviced by the client and or by the employee or seller, or that the seller was not highly knowledgeable, well trained, and had a great skill set, they're not going to buy from them. And they can sense that right off the bat. Other luxury attitudes to be aware of and to understand, what influences your consumer. Because if you understand who the luxury consumer is and what influences them, then you can better help influence them to buy your products and services. Internet, it's so key right now. Whether it's about research, whether it's about social media, whether it's about reviews, it's really important to be on the internet and have a web presence. Another thing is taking luxury brand surveys and looking at some of the surveys that are out there that will help you define those demographics and psychographics of your clients and tell you what those needs and desires are. Probably the biggest thing that's happening in luxury from a consumer perspective is that there's a whole new generation, the millennial consumer, and we aren't addressing them correctly, I don't think, and that's my opinion, by the way, when it comes to custom window treatments and decorative hardware. So as American Express in their most recent Business Insight report said, there's a whole set of new luxury consumers that we have to acknowledge, recognize, and market to. We are really not doing it. It's about learning that conspicuous consumption is not a way to grow wealth. It's not about shopping anymore to achieve happiness or to have a meaningful life. Affluents are about giving back, doing good, taking concrete steps to make the world better. So it's about thus catching the wave to the next luxury boom, which we, Unity Marketing and Pam Dasigner, very great marketing data and an expert when it comes to the luxury market, really thinks that the new luxury boom is going to be between 2026 and 2029, because that's when the shift of income peaks happen for the millennials and they enter into their highest earning and affluence and wealth core. Something to keep in mind, I know that we're right now probably selling, most of us are selling to that baby boomer, the baby boomer being born between 46 and 64. There are right now about $76 million or million households. And so there's certainly a force to be reckoned with, and I'm not saying that you turn around and turn your back on them, but keep this in mind that 10,000 baby boomers retire every day over the next 20 years. So that's a shrinking demographic, and it's also a pivotal time for them because it's a turning point on how they purchase and how they purchase luxury. It's that been there, done that. But waiting in the wings, if you will, for us as a market is that millennial generation, people that were born between 1980 and 2000. It's going to be larger than the baby boomer population, who are basically the parents of the millennials. They're going to be more highly educated than the boomers. They're also going to have higher levels of income and affluence. So as boomers downscale, the millennials will become a leading force in the consumer market, and we need to take advantage of it in drapery hardware and custom window treatments. The one thing that we know about millennials is that they are going to view luxury much different than their parents did. And as they move into affluence, they're going to create a whole new type of luxury. They're going to express it in new ways. They're going to favor different brands, new brands, and they're also going to favor new shopping experiences with their dollars. For us as designers and window covering retailers, we're selling because we're selling custom, we're selling at the luxury end of the spectrum. That younger, more affluent customer that's under 45 is much more valuable because they're going to spend more significantly on luxuries than the mature baby boomer affluent will. The other thing is that younger affluent is entering into what we call the acquisitive life stage. In other words, they're making first-time purchases, whether it's furniture or appliance, cars, whatever it is. It's that life passage, life cycle scenario. And the baby boomers have been there, done that. So recognize that the millennials don't want what their parents or their grandparents wanted when it came to luxury. They want it on their own terms. And then delve deeply into the values that they have and associate with luxury in our particular category, drapery hardware, as we speak, and then position that brand around your values. So again, the key is understanding who this customer is, not only the demographics of it, but the psychographics of it, and then telling the right story so that it resonates with that customer. So what are some of those markets that are growing? Well, first of all, Hispanic market, it will have buying power. Look at this, $1.5 trillion this year. The other thing about the Hispanic market is the average household is larger. They live intergenerationally and they decorate differently. So you should, and they love their home and they think of their home as a sanctuary. So that's important. It's definitely a growing market. Households headed by single women is up 20%, almost 20%. So are you keying in on that? Are you selling custom window treatments to single women that are wanting to decorate in their homes? Non-family households are up 18% also. Single person households are up almost 10%. More people are living alone and not marrying as early. This is a really great one. Households with grandparents raising their grandchildren is up 25%. So again, she might have been there, done that in her family room or in her bedroom. Now she's got to, look at the guest room that she did 10 years ago and she's raising her grandchildren. She's got to change that out for, juvenile and kid and make it a kid's room. So there's opportunity there. What's not a growing market is what we've always defined a custom window treatment market as: married households with children, two-income households. The children are under 18. That is down almost 10%. So knowing what markets are growing and what aren't growing, let's further delve into defining who that custom window treatment consumer is, because they're buying drapery hardware. So they're kind of a choose and define your own kind of luxury person. They're definitely educated, they're affluent because they can afford custom, they understand good design, and they're a little bored with consumerism. Even though they can afford it, they need a good reason to part with the money. She understands and wants simplified good design, but as I said, she will adjust her buying patterns and wait to see what she can get when she wants it and how she wants it. She values good design, and typically works with a window covering professional or a designer primarily for two reasons. First, it's a convenience. So she's expecting the best recommendations for her decorating needs. This plays into her sort of suffering from what we call choice fatigue, meaning that she's feeling a little overwhelmed and exasperated because there's so many choices online, and she's hoping that a professional can help sort it out for her. So what happens is you become a curator or an editor, not a salesperson. The second reason that they buy drapery hardware and custom window treatments from you is that they don't necessarily understand all the intricacies of custom draperies, fabrics, hardware, how to hang it, where to hang it, how to line it, how to interline it, all that kind of stuff. They don't understand what it is. So just because she's hiring you or working with you doesn't equate that the drapery consumer is hiring a pro to translate her wants into rooms and with a free rein. She's hired you to better understand the process, but she still wants to be intimately involved in that process. And then also, don't equate the consumer understanding good design and understanding custom drapery and custom drapery hardware as a component of good design. Because of design democracy and its explosion, there's loads of good design examples out there that are readily available to them. Internet, magazine shows, YouTube, podcasts, design seminars. She's learned the foundations and the principles and elements of design. It's also helped firms like Pottery Barn and Restoration Hardware fulfill the historic role that we had as a drapery professional, which was expert and educator. But when it comes to the highly technical nature of the custom draperies and drapery hardware, this is where your dealer pro can really shine. It's about educating, adding value, offering, and simplifying choices for her. Drapery hardware and some of the componentry and sampling that you'd be showing and selling is easy because it's, it can be straightforward and simplify that process. She's also web savvy. I can't say this enough. She uses the internet, mobile apps, social media. She clearly wants you to have a web presence. She's already shopped and done her research. She's not only getting her info from the internet, but 20% of our customers get their information from TV design shows. So designers we interviewed cited 2 things that impacted their business in the last 2 years. And that one was that the access to so much information in mail ordering via the internet, sometimes it negatively impacts us if the client is knowledgeable because they can price shop for specific items like fabric and drapery hardware and rods and finials, but other times it overwhelms the client and they'd rather have you handle it all. So turn that threat into an opportunity. Quickly to look at what the custom window treatment market is in soft, where it's about $2.1 billion at retail. So when she purchases custom soft treatment, she typically is buying more than one treatment. And as you can see, drapery workrooms are doing about 41% of the business in soft. Designer, decorators, and drapery specialists are doing about 34%. The average gross revenue, by the way, and this was in 2010, our latest figures, and that you'll know that there's about 1,500 registered drapery workrooms in 2010. Now it'll be interesting to see how those numbers change with the next economic census. Soft treatments are almost half in curtain and draperies, with about a third in top treatments and valances, just valances alone. And then 20%, and I'm sure this is growing in the next survey I would do, in soft shades. 58% is done in soft drapery. I just saw somebody online and one of my Facebook groups said, I'm, only been selling hard treatments and I'm thinking about getting into soft. Well, hell yes, excuse my French. More business is being done in soft than hard treatments. And actually, you're probably behind the curve right now. And 13% of that market is in drapery hardware. Obviously, key component of soft. They buy multiple layers. They buy multiple windows. So don't, it's not onesie twosies. 20% of consumers are upgrading their window fashions. They've already purchased maybe hard treatments, and because of function, now they're tired or bored with them and they want to quote unquote finish off the window. So there's opportunity here for us to go back to our other customers. There's lots of reasons to sell drapery hardware. And I also threw this in because everybody always asks me, what's the average retail pricing? Now, again, this is across the U.S., so this is average. It might not fit with where you are regionally. You might be higher or lower, but it's always nice to have a benchmark. But draperies and top treatments, almost $3,000 is the average retail sale. In draperies, it's almost $2,000. So the drapery consumer is certainly your luxury customer. It's an investment. It's using discretionary income. And she doesn't buy based on price. She wants value, but she doesn't want to appear that she's spending too much. She wants to purchase those legacy pieces, if you will. She wants value. Part of that value comes in being a connoisseur and connoisseurship. Um, this really relates a luxury to the whole artisan and craftsmanship. And in decorative hardwares, particularly when you're doing custom decorative hardware with hand finishes and carved finials and one-offs, and even down to tracks being cut to measure, etc. It all speaks to quality, equating craftsmanship and connoisseur. It's about taking care, about being considerative, about creating something that's one of a kind, unique, is really the key to good connoisseurship. So what should you know about luxury when selling decorative hardware? Well, you know, it's all about understanding where the consumer is, as I said, and understanding that your demographics of your consumer, knowing what they already have in their homes, understanding their lifestyle and approach to luxury, positioning your products for a more upscale consumer. Maybe it's packaging good, better, best. It's certainly not the upsell anymore. It's showing them the top of the line to begin with, and then if you have to, working your way down to be within a budget or needs and wants or whatever it is. It's also about understanding where they want to invest their money in their home and giving you, new fresh looks, not only to your displays and to your sample books, but carrying some high price collections. One of the rules of thumb in trend strategy is that having a product mix that includes about 10% of trend and luxury items, because it'll drive the rest of your sales. And often we forget that. So look at your product mix in decorative hardware. If you're only showing mid-range and good lines, maybe you need to fill in with something that's a hand finished line, whoever it might be, a finial company, an Orion, an Aria, whatever it might be. Look at your product mix and make sure you have all three levels that you can offer your customer. Luxury consumers are, democratic about their approach to luxury. We know that. Luxury goods are better. Quality counts. Nearly 90% of luxury consumers say when you buy a luxury item, you expect it to be a cut above the average. So don't try to sell a custom window treatment with an expandable rod, is really what we're saying here. It's about being highly invested in a lifestyle, not necessarily in just standalone products. Remember, consumer insight is the ultimate competitive weapon. So it always astounds me that so many window covering professionals are so reluctant to embrace the dynamics of how a consumer shops today. A lot of times I hear all the time, I don't have a website because it's too expensive. It's too, how can I build a cheap website? Can I use WordPress and do it in a weekend? Yep, sure, you can. I've done it myself, but keep in mind, particularly with the web, that's where the client is, that's where you're going to be getting all your leads moving forward. It's just like, we're just, part of it is you're just reluctant to change along with the consumer, which brings me to Google and the zero moment of truth. So basically what I'm saying here is in 2013, Google did a survey, and basically it was proof of point being that the consumer doesn't go to referrals. Whatever it is that inspires them, first they go on the internet and then they search, and then they read reviews of what other people said, and then maybe they watch tutorials and videos to understand and become knowledgeable about that product category. Then they go out and they ask their network, whether they know them virtually or physically, and then they go to the shelf to buy it. So they don't just walk into the store anymore or pick up the phone and call you to come into their home. This is from Google. 67% of all furniture shoppers, which you can translate that into custom window treatments, rely on your website. They expect to see pricing online, and 56% abandon you if you don't have that information online. Because typically 65% of customers aren't sure what the retailer, to purchase from, and they aren't even sure what brand to purchase when they come online or they call you. So why do they buy? Well, the number one reason a client buys is color, followed by aesthetics, textiles, the desire to decorate, sometimes considered a hobby, or the DIYers, in some regard, and then price. So like other luxury customers, she has an eye for discounts and bargains, but buying a discounted luxury is not the reason. Price is not her first reason to buy. All of our research and anecdotal and surveys point to color, aesthetics, and textiles as being more important. So the key here is educating the client as well as yourselves. An interesting result and a big disconnect between sellers and customers is suppliers tell us that simple treatments like grommets on rods and rings, or pleated tops on rods and rings in neutral colors are the best sellers. But what the client is telling us is that she was only made aware of those styles and those styling choices in decorative hardware and those colors in those fabrics. If she had been exposed to bolder color, more texture, different, unique stylings, they would have been open and would probably have purchased them. Self-fulfilling prophecy here. So to sort of sum everything up, it's all about the experience. If we tended to buy status things to demonstrate our wealth and our status today, we prefer to buy unique experiences. And this has affected interior design. The design process has changed according to this. They don't want to just see samples of finials and pulls. They want to see their future room or their house. They want to feel it. They want to experience. That's why mobile apps and 3D visualization is almost compulsory as an element in your sales presentation nowadays. I mean, when Home Depot's selling 3D printers, who knows where that'll take us 5 years down the road for, maybe custom designing one-off finials, printing it, from a drawing to showing the customer, or 3D printing it off of our MakerBot, and then getting her approval in a strike-off and having it created from one of our drapery manufacturers or drapery hardware manufacturers. So it's all about that special experience. It's really important. So stop designing products that start designing customer experiences. From Startup Daily, the real experience people have with your company, all of its touch points become the story, and that gets propagated. It goes viral, if you will, and that will set you apart. Don't design standalone products. Present an experience. Again, I'm often find it really interesting that we sell retail drapery hardware that can be $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 at retail off of a 4-color catalog, and maybe a sample finish, a finished sample, I should say, in a binder. Think about that. If a client wants experience and you're showing her pictures in the catalog and saying, how about this? And oh, here's the chip of the finish it's going to be. What does that say about us as being purveyors of luxury and luxury experiences? There's got to be a better way to present drapery hardware and sampling and in presentation in the client. So think about that. How can you create an experience when you're selling drapery hardware? At the very least, it's collecting, pieces and poles and showing them. So instead of saying, I think we need a 1 3/8 inch pole, and she can't visualize it, at least have a 12-inch piece of it in a bag somewhere that you can show her what the size is so she can understand what it is, or the ring size, or the, a finish chip at the very least. There's still, through some of the digital technologies that are out there, there's still going to be better ways to approach it. Second thing, it's more about uniqueness. We're shifting to the whole idea of local artisans and small boutiques. For us at Orion, we're makers, and we embrace that maker philosophy. And we are made in the U.S. in California. We have a shop where every piece is hand finished, every piece is welded, bent, from start to finish. So it's about communicating inspiration to your client to help create, and uniqueness to create that experience. So whether it's, pieces like this to hold up a swag and cascade, or interesting one-off medallions, or iron cornices, or custom-made iron poles and finials, all of that, we can do that for you. Other vendors, our competitors, can do that for you, but start creating custom and unique drapery hardware. It's also more about sustainability than you think. For us at Orion, it's Orion Green, and our relationship with the Earth Island Institute, because sustainable no longer means cheap. And whether you're producing furniture or decorative hardware or whatever it is, you can get stunning pieces out of recycling and upcycling that have that unique character, and they have a history. They already have a story because you're using them. So it's about what's happening here is the merging of luxury with sustainability. Social responsibility is just not a slogan anymore. It's also more about individuality. The change in the luxury market is that you want one-offs, one-of-a-kind, something that's uniquely personal. Maybe you're not necessarily, just because everybody's buying into gray and 50 shades of gray, maybe that's not the color for you, and you're going to go off and do your own thing. And more we're seeing that happen, whether it's from custom furniture to custom hardware. The space still has to have function. Yep, you don't want, big entryways and spiral staircases, or a wine cellar if you don't use it, or you don't need a big bathroom with a jacuzzi tub because you only shower, those kinds of things. So it needs to be more functional, but it also has to be more individual. And maybe it's something as easy as, right now indigo and metallics are huge as a design trend. So maybe it's, asking your drapery hardware company, can you mix this matte color and this lacquered metal? So can I do a cobalt pole and copper lacquered rings? Or can you do dip dyes or ombres on a pole or on a finial? What's happening out there in the trend world that you can then translate into drapery hardware? We can do that for you. You just have to bring us the idea. So understand the opportunities, know what they already have, as I said, position your products for a more upscale consumer, understand their priorities, and then create those fresh new looks for your displays and your sampling to turn those needs into wants. Because the client wants a story, an experience, authentic products, investment in enduring luxury, shock and awe, surprise and delight, and value while getting the latest and the greatest. And by the way, then we all wrap that up in a package. She wants instant gratification right now, right? Because of technology. So explore some new sales channels for your drapery hardware. Maybe it's collaborating with somebody else and becoming their window treatment specialist or their drapery hardware specialist. I always think digital. How can you sell drapery hardware online and e-commerce? Maybe it's about leveraging the idea of insider access, small, intimate, that whole trend. No-brainer. Motorization and home automation, really important, and especially in decorative hardware. Sometimes when we think motorization, we think, architectural tracks, where here you can be talking about really decorative looks. Or online trunk shows. We're talking about webs. Not to mention, no reason you can't do, window treatment trunk shows and drapery hardware trunk shows, both online and in person. This, I think, is an interesting aspect. In the apparel industry, you now can rent luxury. just like renting a tux for a wedding, you can rent outfits or handbags or, shoes for a special occasion. Why not rent custom window treatments, including drapery hardware, for that party you're having, or for your daughter's graduation party, or for that wedding that you have coming down? It's all about fractional ownership and renting, and customers are doing it in other industries. Does it apply in the window covering industry? Could be interesting. And then tell a new story to the affluent, one that matters to them and makes them notice. It isn't the kind of brand messaging that you see at Gucci or Hermes, focus on status. It's about, again, focusing on the process and the story and the content. And finally, think about creating a luxury statement. This is the Ritz-Carlton's luxury statement. And I really love it because I think that it translates really well into custom window treatments and drapery hardware. So Ritz-Carlton says, that they're basically connoisseurs of experience, and that they are seeing that whole clear shift from collectors of goods to appreciation of time and spending it the right way. So as a window treatment professional, you can give your clients the luxury of time, the luxury of space, creating those, whether it's an intimate private setting or whether it's cozy and comfy, or whether it has to do with function and seamless functionality, or whether it has to do with health and wellness. You can give them the luxury of place, which means that it can be surprising in an extraordinary environment. And you can give them the luxury of experiences, creating memories or recounting memories. And you can give them the luxury of service. And I just think that, kind of setting it that way, talking about it that way, really does set you apart from other purveyors of decorative hardware and custom window treatments. So that's our webinar for today. Are there any questions? And while we have some questions, I think Tiffany's in the background, and she is going to field and do some drawings. Again, this month we're going to draw for a set of our rings, talking about sampling and creating a better presentation. This is our ring set. These are our 20 most popular rings, and they're all tagged with what the ring drop is and the number. That way, if you can't decide what size ring goes on what pole or what your finished length needs to be based on your ring drop, you'd have your ring set. And then this is also in our iron. These are all our pole sizes that all sort of, set within one into the largest pole size, so you get an idea of what poles are. So I think I have some questions. Let me see what I have going on. Oh. Just a reminder that the webinar will be available online on our website and on our webinar page on our blog once I edit it and get it up there for you. Don't forget to visit our website and find out if there's a distributor near you if you're not familiar with us. And please get social with us. Like us on Facebook. We are pinning on Pinterest, and don't forget to check out our blog. Okay, so the winner of the ring set is Mary Jones. Congratulations, Mary. And the winner of the rod set is Ann Fawcett. So Mary and Ann, will you please type into your question box your shipping address and contact information so that we can ship these sample sets out to you? Any other questions? Awesome. Thanks so much. See you again next time.